In the midst of the Vietnam War, the city of Hue was in flames. Outnumbered and surrounded, the Marines waged a fierce battle against the relentless forces of the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army in heart-pounding urban combat. Just when all seemed lost, from the smoke and chaos, a formidable silhouette emerged. As the 1st Battalion of the 6th Marine Regiment fought tooth and nail through the city, the ground trembled beneath the might of the Ontos, known ominously as the Thing. This powerful anti-tank vehicle, brandishing its 6 M40 recoilless guns, stood as a sentinel, ready to turn the tide of battle. Smoke, flames, and gunpowder filled the air. As the Marines reached the Citadel, enemy resistance increased. With deliberate precision, the Ontos entered the fray with a relentless purpose: decimate the enemy. One after another, its recoilless rifles roared, firing specialized beehive rounds that released a cloud of over 10,000 steel flechettes to get rid of Viet Cong opposition. A Marine officer, a witness to the Ontos' superb performance, would later declare it, quote, the most effective of all Marine supporting arms. Lightweight and powerful. The M40 recoilless rifle was a portable anti-tank weapon developed by the United States in the early 1950s to replace the aging M18 recoilless rifle. It was created to provide infantry units with a robust mobile anti-armor weapon. The Army's Frankfurt Arsenal designed the M40 with the collaboration of the California Institute of Technology's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It was chambered for the 105mm T-174 shell and could fire a canister, high-explosive plastic tracer, and heat or high-explosive anti-tank ammunition that could penetrate up to 400mm of armor. Depending on the shell, the weapon had an effective firing range of up to 1,480 yards. Besides its anti-armor capabilities, the M40 could also attack enemy positions and fortifications and decimate them with explosives. Additionally, the M40 employed the principle of venting propellant gases to the rear to counteract recoil, allowing for a lighter carriage and ease of handling. The weapon weighed around 1,100 pounds, making it relatively portable and suitable for infantrymen. It had a length of 11 feet and a height of almost 4 inches. The M40 was deployed during the Korean War, proving its worth as a portable anti-tank and anti-infantry weapon capable of immobilizing Soviet-made North Korean T-34 tanks and other armored vehicles. Despite having limited range and firepower compared to other anti-tank weapons, the M40 provided infantry troops with anti-tank capabilities. But it was not perfect after all. Due to the high-velocity ammunition it employed, the M40s had a relatively short life and was gradually replaced by more advanced anti-tank guided missile systems. Nevertheless, the M40 contributed to the evolution of more advanced and versatile recoilless technology used for other anti-tank weapon systems. The success of the M40 during the early 1950s paved the way for interesting projects in which the recoilless rifle could be used, one of which was a weird-looking armored vehicle meant to be a tank destroyer. The Aging Scorpion. Following the aftermath of World War II and the sudden rise of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, the U.S. military and its allies developed a new doctrine based on armored warfare. They believed new conflicts would rely heavily on armored columns of main battle tanks and other vehicles. Alongside the possible nuclear onslaught, the top brass concluded the military required an effectively light anti-tank vehicle to eliminate Soviet tanks. The vehicle had to be fast, mobile, agile, and most importantly, air transportable to be deployed quickly on the battlefield wherever it was needed. The U.S. military sought a light, mobile tank destroyer for airborne forces, capable of ambushing enemies and deployable via parachute drops to provide the paratroops with additional mobility and firepower. Consequently, the Army began looking for a replacement for the aging M56 Scorpion airborne self-propelled gun. The focus of this new vehicle was lightweight mobility, prioritizing extreme lightness. The Scorpion weighed around 7 tons and featured a basic suspension and a large 90mm gun. It sacrificed protection and stability due to the emphasis on weight reduction. This resulted in minimal protection for crew members, who were only shielded by a small gun shield and exposed to enemy fire. The Scorpion's chassis also struggled to handle the recoil of the powerful 90mm M54 gun, hindering stability and accuracy. Nonetheless, the 90mm gun had the potential to penetrate the formidable armor of Soviet tanks, such as the 200mm of frontal armor from the T-54 at ranges of over 1,000 yards. With this in mind, the Army and the Marine Corps launched the UNTOS, or the Thing program, in November 1950 to develop a vehicle similar to the Scorpion, with one notable difference: replacing a standard rifled gun with a set of recoilless guns. The Thing. The joint program between the Marines and the Army was awarded to Alice Chalmers' Farm Machinery Division work, executed at the Agricultural Assembly Plant in LaPorte, Indiana. The design specification was reportedly a concise one-page document. It barely specified that its running gear had to be based on the M56 Scorpion and utilized its same six-cylinder inline gas engine standard for the GMC trucks employed by the military. In 1953, the prototype was showcased to the Army. The response was far from good. The Army had a negative reaction centered on various design aspects, such as the size and height of the vehicle. Interior space was limited and cramped for the crew and the tank's ammunition for the M40 recoilless rifles. The Army rejected the 6 externally mounted recoilless rifles, which could only be reloaded from the outside, endangering the crew in an active combat scenario. The soldiers also disliked the shallow turret and the half-inch armor plating on the sides, which only offered protection against small arms fire and could be penetrated by rocket-propelled grenades and even 50-caliber machine guns. Besides the 6 106mm recoilless rifles, the Thing was armed with 4 50-caliber Remington M8C spotting rifles with tracer rounds to help the crew coordinate their fire while in combat. The UNTOS was armed with one 30-caliber Browning M1919A4 machine gun for anti-infantry use. The vehicle had a length of 12.5 feet, a width of 8.5 feet, a height of 7 feet, and a weight of 19,000 pounds. The power plant comprised, as required, one General Motors Corporation Model 302 gasoline engine developing 145 horsepower. With it, the vehicle could reach a top speed of 29.8 miles per hour and had an estimated range of over 150 miles. Unfortunately, the Army was extremely dissatisfied with the overall design and performance of the vehicle and canceled an order of over 1,000. The Marines, on the other hand, were all in and ordered 300 M50 UNTOS to serve their entirely different priorities. The Tank Destroyer. The UNTOS was tested at Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1955. During the tests, the simultaneous firing of all 6 M40 recoilless guns caused significant backblasts, ejecting bricks from a nearby building and shattering the rear car windows of vehicles in the vicinity, leading to the Army's complete withdrawal from the program. Despite the Army's cancellation, the Marine Corps urgently sought a vehicle with anti-tank capabilities and ordered 300 UNTOS. Production spanned from 1955 to 1957. The Marines accepted the first UNTOS vehicle on October 31, 1956. Despite its drawbacks, the Marine Corps prioritized anti-tank capabilities over anything else. They incorporated the strange-looking vehicle into its arsenal, recognizing the necessity for hit-and-run tactics due to its limited ammunition capacity. Being fired upon while reloading was nothing new for the Leathernecks, and they mocked the Army for their complaints regarding the lack of armor protection and loading the guns internally. The UNTOS was officially designated Rifle, a multiple 106mm self-propelled M50. As the name implied, the gun produced very low recoil when fired, making it ideal for jeeps and other light vehicles or tripods for infantry use. This allowed the infantry or light vehicles such as the UNTOS to employ tank-caliber rounds, providing additional firepower without the additional tonnage of heavier tanks. Nevertheless, this type of gun had several drawbacks. They dissipated shell energy outward instead of producing recoil, posing a danger to those behind the gun. The M40 was also a low-power gun, which meant it could only fire low-power projectiles, such as heavy explosive and shape-charge shells, and not kinetic energy-based rounds. This resulted in limited effectiveness against vehicles with strong anti-heat protection. However, none of this stopped it from being ready for battle. Action in the Caribbean. The no-recoil characteristic of these guns allowed for multiple mounts on a single chassis, as with the UNTOS. The vehicle's 105mm recoilless rifle was often called 106mm to distinguish and avoid confusion with other 105mm shells. The Marines studied different variants of the UNTOS, one of which was the utility vehicle Tracked Infantry T-55. It was an APC, or Light Armored Personnel Carrier model, with limited interior space and could accommodate only 5 infantry. Adding to its drawbacks, the driver had to lie prone, which led to the scrapping of the model altogether. A stretched version, dubbed Utility Vehicle Tracked Infantry T-56, featured space for 8 soldiers. Still, the equipment had to be carried externally. T-55 and T-56 versions were deemed impractical and never overcame the prototype phase. In 1960, a 105mm M50 Ontos design was proposed to replace the 6 standard 106mm recoilless rifles. The new design included a revolver-style autoloader, but the project was not approved. The first deployment of the Ontos was during the Lebanon crisis of 1958. Although it did not see any action, the American crews got to familiarize themselves with the vehicle. It was not until 1964 that the Marines got to see combat aboard the Ontos during the U.S. intervention in the Dominican Republic. The light vehicles managed to destroy several enemy tanks, including a Swedish L-60 and a French AMX-13, marking the only time the Ontos was used for its anti-tank role in its service. Another proposed variant aimed to replace the GMC engine with a Chrysler 361 cubic inch V8 engine. This modification was approved and implemented in the Marine Corps vehicles under the designation M50A1. The conversion was executed for 176 out of 297 initially accepted vehicles and took place between 1963 and 1965, just in time for the Vietnam War. Battle of Hue. The M50 Ontos was deployed with the 1st Marine units in 1965. 2 anti-tank battalions were sent to the jungles of Vietnam to perform a different kind of role. The absence of enemy tanks led to Ontos's attachment to other units and was adapted as infantry support despite their tank-fighting nature. The lack of an established doctrine for their use also led to ad hoc deployment over the battlefield. In combat against the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army, they provided effective frontal and flank fire, aiding the Marines in arduous engagements. The Ontos excelled as bunker busters, using heat rounds. They effectively tore apart walls where entrenched enemies were firing against the Marines and other friendlies. Moreover, specialized beehive rounds that released a cloud of over 10,000 steel flechettes were used by the Marines to decimate enemy positions. It was a potent anti-personnel weapon that, when all 6 guns were fired, resulted in a barrage of 60,000 small projectiles pelting the intended target area. The Ontos's reputation led to VC and NVA avoidance, boosting its psychological impact on the enemy. Nevertheless, the Ontos eventually showed its hand, and their vulnerability to mines and rocket-propelled grenades was exploited by the enemy. During the Battle of Hue, which was part of the NVA's Tet Offensive of 1968, the Ontos proved critical for the intense urban combat inside the city. Once the Leathernecks conquered the city, Colonel Stanley S. Hughes, commander of the 1st Marines at Hue, said, quote, "If any single supporting arm is considered more effective than all others, it must be the 106mm recoilless rifle, especially the M50 Ontos." Scarcity of spare parts made it difficult to repair the Ontos, and this resulted in a dwindling availability of operational vehicles. 1 year later, in 1969, the Marines withdrew from Vietnam. The remaining Ontos were left behind and were used as static turrets. Although clunky and without a specific doctrine, the vehicles proved their worth with the Marines during the Vietnam War, paving the way for far more effective light anti-tank vehicles. Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe to our Dark Docs channel to watch more videos about unusual vehicles and armament. Remember to hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest videos.